Been a long time since I had that gavel in my hand. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm not Raven Whittington. I'm Ted Owens. Raven's not with us today, and so I would like to just do a little bit of business on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce in partnership with our presenting sponsor, Kelly Brothers Painting. You know, there was a time in Truckee you couldn't say latte, but our latte sponsors, Town of Truckee, East River PR, Tahoe Forest Healthcare System, Tahoe Mountain Realty, Porter Simon, and there was a time you couldn't say cappuccino in this town. But our cappuccino sponsors are Pacific Crest Wealth Planning, Mountain Hardware and Sports, and our espresso sponsors, Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. Got Dogs, JK Architecture and Engineering, Wild and Rough, Mount Lincoln Construction, Auerbach Engineering Corporation, NV5, and Dixon Realty, Truckee Tahoe. Along with our media partners, Tahoe Truckee Media, 101.5 FM Truckee Tahoe Radio, Sierra Sun and Moonshine Inc. And I'd like to thank you all for being here. Doesn't this feel great? Yeah. And if you're not doing anything tonight, there's a planning commission meeting, and I'm sure they'd like it if you all showed up too. Town of Truckee, 30 years. You know, reflecting on some of Truckee's history during the past 30 or so years, Truckee's first mayor, Kathleen Egan, is with us to share that which led up to and ultimately became the successful incorporation of the town of Truckee. Truckee's first town council election, in which there were 26 candidates, or 27, but who's counting, and the daunting tasks that faced that very first town council. And then we'll hear from Truckee's second employee hire, former community development director and former town manager, Tony Lashbrook. And Tony will reflect on building a town government from scratch. There was no general plan, there was no development code, no building department, and there were many heavy lifts to be done with a fledgling staff. And then I will speak as past mayor, council member, and a planning commissioner for the town, and I'll cover a different phase, which was town maturation, staff and town culture, development pressures, the golf course wars, and community participation. And then batting cleanup, and I don't mean to put it that way, but of course, our mayor, Lindsay Romack. Let's give her a round of applause. And Lindsay will shift our attention from the rearview mirror to focusing on looking through the windshield at the future and the challenges that the town faces and what may lay ahead for the next 30 years. We probably won't be here to celebrate that, right, Jim? Where are you? Yeah, I'm not going to be here. Before that, let me describe to you Truckee in 1990. Some of you may remember it, and for others, just try to imagine. Truckee had one flashing red light. Does anyone remember where it was? Nope. Bottom of Northwoods and Donner Pass Road, but close. There were no roundabouts, therefore no need for an alignment shop in town. There was no railroad undercrossing, no 267 bypass. The median home price was $137,000. There was no Glenshire Elementary School, no Alder Creek Middle School, and Old Brockway was 267 because there was no 267 bypass, and you were typically doing 55 miles an hour as you just went by the 7-Eleven up there. Safeway was where Mountain Hardware is now. Mountain Hardware was in the old Gateway building. The Safeway Shopping Center was a forest. The Department of Motor Vehicles was located at the old CHP site, and the center it is in today was a field. There was no old Greenwood, Gray's Crossing, Pine Forest, Pioneer Commerce Center, and although out of the Truckee town limits, there were no impacts from Lahontan, Martis Camp, or Schaefer's Mill. Sunday evening was prime rib special night at Obie's. How many remember that? And snow removal was an occurrence, not a service. And with that, I will turn it over happily to Kathleen Egan.
The red light means you can hear me, right? Yay, that's great. Well, my job here today is to start with first the earth cooled. And that is, why in the heck did Truckee want to incorporate? And there's really a long history of Truckee being very interested in this topic. With the help of the Historical Society, I was able to see a lot of newspaper clippings going back over 100 years of Truckee wants to incorporate. There's this issue, there's that issue. In fact, even Jim Porter was in one of the early efforts investigating incorporation. So there was a lot of activity, but and for decades, the town of Truckee was a very small town, 1,500 people, more or less, 1,500 people, very static. And then a couple of big things happened starting, in the 60s, and that was the Olympics came, that added notoriety to the area, and I-80 came, and that added access, easier access to the area. And then after that, the county was our planning entity. They added a whole host of very large developments: Tahoe Donner, Glenshire, Prosser Lakeview, Sierra Meadows. So Ted was talking about all the ones that have come after, but those are the ones that were here. In that period, there were 9,000 parcels added to the area. And because they were so distant, not good plannings, because they were so distant from the core services, added 100 miles of roads to the community. But it didn't build out right away. So there was no property tax revenue coming in to pay for road maintenance and snow removal, which is why it was just an occurrence and not a service. So these were the kinds of situations that existed in Truckee at that time. And then in the last 4 years of the 70s, there were 2,600 building permits issued in a 4-year period. 2,600. That's 600 building permits a year. We have never seen that kind of growth and activity in terms of rate of growth. 71% increase in the number of homes in Truckee in a 4-year period. That's truly explosive. So you have this agitation building over what's happening here, and also the roads and the cost of maintaining the roads and snow removal. So that was the season of discontent. The seeds were planted. Then things really heated up in So this is what people were talking about all the time as far as incorporation. That in 1986 was the incorporation effort preceding the one that was successful in 1992. And that was one where proponents and opponents really ended up lining up in a divided way on incorporation. This was a big learning experience for all of us. They lined up on opposing sides, camps, proponents, opponents. The county had one fiscal analysis that they had prepared. The proponents had prepared another fiscal analysis, and they didn't match. So we had belief that the proponents felt that theirs was accurate and good because they were very conservative. They were underestimating revenue and overestimating costs. It's a totally legitimate approach. The opponents said, yes, but you haven't paid attention to what happens if we have a wildfire and it goes outside the town limits and you have to pay for it. You're going to tank the city in terms of you're not going to have the money to pay for it. What happens if we have a run of several years of snow years like this? You're not going to be able to pay for all of that, and we're going to be insolvent. The city will go bankrupt. So you have these opposing views. Not only that, the rancor was significant. If you look at the newspapers, and I did this just about 6 or 8 months ago, the letters to the editor were just stuffed into the Sierra Sun. Enormous amount of rancor, enormous amount of accusation, a lot of personal attacks. It's kind of what we see today in our environment, a lot of that kind of tension. So people who are undecided about it, people want to do something different because services aren't being met. But they're left kind of, I don't know, which fiscal analysis do I stick with? I really like Joe Blow. I think he's a pretty smart guy. Barbara over there really knows what she's talking about, but there was so much intensity that uncertainty kind of ruled the day, and incorporation failed by a vote of 57 to 43%, I think. The county kind of took note and said, well, we know that the town of Truckee, the community, really wants to have some say in its land use planning. So let's organize an Eastern Nevada County Planning Commission, which they did. And then, in late 1980, or in 1980, a Kmart project was proposed up where, what's the name of it, Suites? Spring Hill Suites is currently, Kmart project. The Planning Commission denied the project unanimously. It was appealed to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors unanimously overturned the Planning Commission's appeal. And that was it. That reignited the whole effort all over again. So in 1989 or so, another proponency group, Planning for Tomorrow in Truckee, came together, but the tack they took was entirely different this time. It was like, we're not going to take a position on incorporation until we find out whether it's fiscally solvent. You still have the desire for managing your own destiny, but we want to make sure this is legitimate. We approached the county and said, let's work collaboratively on this, collaboratively on one fiscal analysis to be done by a consultant hired by an independent agency, local agency formation commission, and that we agree at the outset that we're going to live with the results of that fiscal analysis. The other thing that was really important, and that again was a life lesson for me, was the opponents, rather than isolated camps arguing their points, the opponents and the proponents were brought together. Those in favor of incorporation, those who were fearful of incorporation were brought together, and they worked through and the stated issues. The core value that was identified there was we listen and we respect differing perspectives, and we made every single effort not to dismiss an opinion or a concern that was identified by one side or the other. We did not dismiss any concerns. That's hard to do. You know, we all know that, but we did not dismiss them, and we analyzed every single piece of it. Well, we brought them to the consultant working for the local agency formation commission, and that commission ended up analyzing every single thing, and we worked together to mutually agree on solutions to each and every one of those issues. That was a big learning thing, as I've said many, many times for me. So with the open and collaborative spirit, there was no organized opposition, and the vote passed 73% to 73%. There was another vote at the same time, and that was in November 1992, and that vote was, do we call it a town or a city? And that passed 83%, it's a town. So if you ever wonder why somebody corrects you when you say city, that's the reason. You know, and it's true today. It's like calling San Francisco Frisco. You don't call San Francisco Frisco, and you don't call Truckee a city. So what came next? The town council was chosen in a separate election in March of 1993. There were, as Ted said, 27 candidates. 5 council members were elected, and of those 5, 3 had voted against incorporation. And you would think that would be a setup for a lot of rancor and differing opinions. And no, because the way we had approached it, fortunately, we were all working together, and we had one goal and one goal alone, and that was to do what was best for the town. And we were working together. We were starting from zero. The only way we're going to accomplish this is working together. And of that feeling maintained for years and years and years between the town, our developing staff, town council, our developing staff, and ultimately the community. I mean, it was a true honeymoon period for a long, long period of time. We were firmly focused on the key priorities the community had identified, none of the ones we were making up, but land use planning, road maintenance, snow removal. And we knew we needed to act very boldly. And so the first thing we did, I mean, the poster child for bad road maintenance in Truckee was Jaboom Street. I mean, the potholes were gigantic. Now, we have a lot of potholes, as you know, right now. But I am confident that they are going to be fixed because the town staff that we have doing road maintenance and snow removal is truly outstanding, and they will get it done. That was like an occurrence, before. So, but it was the poster child, and what we did was we said we have to fix Jaboom Street with lightning speed. We didn't do any fancy analysis. We didn't do any fancy, let's do a geological anything. We just paved the road because we needed to demonstrate that something was really different. We hired a town. Jim Porter tells the story. I'm going to take this away from you, Jim. The first meeting of the town council, we were all at Donner Lake Village, and we're sitting around a round table, and there's a phone in the center, and there's 5 of us and Jim Porter. And we're sitting around a table, and I said, "Now what do we do?" And it was true. Now what do we do? But League of California Cities came to the rescue. We hired a temporary town manager, a temporary public works director. We hired two planners from Southern California who kidded the ballet slippers in the snow because they weren't used to the snow. A town attorney, and on and on. So we were able to muddle our way through. We had some major successes. That Jaboom Street was a success. A major error was deciding that the traffic was so bad in downtown Truckee that we needed to make one-way streets. Donner Pass Road going east and Jaboom Street going west. That lasted about 2 months because the community said, no, this is not working. And we listened. And we said, oh, and they accepted our successes and they accepted our mistakes, which was really wonderful. So with that, I'll return it over to Tony.
Thank you, Kathleen. Tony Lashbrook, as Ted stated, second hire for the town. I was the community development director. I came here from Mariposa County, which is the mother of counties, one of the oldest counties in the state of California, but it had an infant planning program. So my experience there for 13 years was really to build a planning program. First as the most junior planner, and then for a number of years as the planning director. And I came here. I was hired because planning was one of the key priorities, and there was a real desire to get on it. But what was it like when I came here? It was a brand new town. I came in February of 1994, so roughly a year after the town had flipped the switch and started business. There were no rules. There were some rules, which I'll touch on, but there was no personnel rules. Which was a challenge, but also very freeing in terms of trying to get things done quickly. But most importantly, there was a palpable community excitement around self-governance, and there was huge expectations. Crowds like this were not unusual. And the excitement was positive. It wasn't like a lynch mob. It was like people were fired up about what the town could accomplish. I was also immediately struck by the way the council approached their business. It wasn't the mantra. Well, I was elected because I know everything that's best for Truckee, and I'm going to tell you what that is. It was really about, I was elected because people know who I am. They know I'm a good listener. I will engage the community, and I will use their input to define our direction. And that was different, and it was significant, something special, something to foster and preserve. In Mariposa, the situation was, we could see what needed to be done in terms of planning for a future, but you had to wait, to thread the needle in the right political moment to move an initiative. In Truckee, everyone wanted everything done now. Yeah, it was like it was an amazingly invigorating professional experience, and so down to the business of planning in Truckee. That's what I was originally brought here for. It was a new town, but not really a blank slate. And Judy, how do I get to my slides? Not too many slides, but a few. So Kathleen talked a little bit about the explosive development in the 1970s when all these massive subdivisions were approved. But, it was really the town in coming here as a professional planner, it's like, wow, look at this place. It's 12 miles long and 3 miles wide. It has a downtown core, but then the big neighborhoods are flung to the edges with open space in between. It's split by a interstate freeway, a transcontinental railroad and a river. It's like, wow, what a mess. This is this is a city only a county could create, and coming from a county planning background. So it was not only that, but there was zoning. We had zoning in place from the county. Frankly, it allowed a lot more development than the town of Truckee allows today. There was a little bit of a haircut that happened in the planning process. But there was, you couldn't just wipe it clean. There was a lot of private property interests out there. They had economic expectations. And so that was underlying the effort. The desire was to get the general plan done quickly. When I was still in Mariposa, these folks sent me a box of all these planning documents and said, here, don't you think we could get the general plan, a clean slate general plan done in 1 year? And I said, well, we can try. And it took 2. And, how in the world did we do a general plan in 2 years? Right, the current general plan update, we're close to year 5. A much more typical time frame for a general plan process. But the Truckee general plan the first Truckee general plan took 2. Well, first of all, how do we do that? It was general. It didn't solve everything. It didn't have all the answers. It kind of set the table for a lot of future work. Significant work like the downtown specific plan, the development code, our zoning, the trails plan, etc. That early general plan effort identified like 5 key visions as I see them. That was recognizing the downtown as the heart of the town, protecting our environment because it is our economy, enhancing our unique character and characters, honoring the Truckee River, and reducing traffic by creating alternative transportation systems. The community was comfortable with those generalities, because they believed in the process, they believed in the people that were sitting up here, because they've proven themselves already. And it also helped that before we were halfway done with the general plan, we'd already started work on the downtown specific plan, something we said we were going to do. And so the wheels were in motion implementing some of these broad visions. These early goals, along with enhancing road maintenance and snow removal and other town services, had literally been the priorities of town over its first 30 years. They remain clear, and they're changing, but they're not really that different today. But the world didn't stop while we were kind of getting our house in order, as the world goes. In 1996, this is before the ink was dry on the general plan, and we were in the middle of creating the downtown specific plan. We received a very formal notice from the Federal Transportation Commission that said Union Pacific Railroad is thinking about buying Southern Pacific Railroad, and we kind of went, what does that mean? And we found out quickly that meant proposed tripling of train traffic through Truckee, so through downtown Truckee. It's important to look back. Ted hit on this. There was no 267 bypass. There was no MacGyver crossing. So really, if you were in North Star and needed to get to the freeway, or vice versa, or Sierra Meadows to the freeway, or Sierra Meadows to the high school, or middle school or elementary school at that time, the only way to do that was across Bridge Street, and or take a left on West River and go down to Highway 89. But when the train was there, which seemed like in Southern Pacific the gate was down a lot more, that you couldn't get to either of those options because the traffic was backed up on busy weekends. Ski traffic is not new. Busy weekends, traffic backed up for miles, literally from downtown Truckee at the gate. And so to say we were freaked out was an understatement. And adding to that was we kind of checked into the Federal Transportation Commission process and found out we really had no realistic sway in that effort. So we had this option: do we want to try to fight it, or we want to try to collaborate? And that's always an option, folks. And so we chose collaborate. And we started working on solutions, and we had, before UP came to town, we were working on some road overcrossing of the tracks on the east end of downtown Truckee to the rail yard. And it would have been a monstrosity, probably 35 feet tall and unbelievably expensive. And UP came to town with really a crack team of their high-level staff. And they said, well, you could do that, but we think you could get under the tracks over here at what's now MacGyver Crossing. And after discussions, they said, well, if you guys build the road, we'll build the bridge. So if you look at the Mouse Hole pedestrian bore as an $11 million project, even back in 1996, that road bridge probably would have been for the town at least $5 million. But they did it, and they did it in a matter of weeks. So out of that, also came the MacGyver roundabout. So this was the first roundabout, and really the option, this new intersection at MacGyver would have required a signal or a roundabout, and growth in the general plan would have required maybe 18 new signals. So this provided the decision point for the council on how do we want to do these intersections. They picked the roundabout in this case because A, it slowed down traffic coming into downtown Truckee. B, it's safer in terms of serious accidents, head-ons, and T-bones. And C, it doesn't look like a signalized intersection. So it was something different and unique. And we've never looked back, as you have probably gathered. So fixing our roads. As the town did, there was a citizen effort. The first led to an advisory vote on a parcel charge for road maintenance. And to give you the magnitude of the issue, LAVCO, as part of the incorporation fiscal analysis, said, we think there's a $30 to $40 million unfunded road maintenance problem here. Your roads are falling apart. You have no pot of money to fix them. Good luck. And so it was top priority at that time to figure it out. And so there was a community effort. The first idea was, we'll do a parcel charge. And it went to an advisory vote, and it failed. Not much, but it failed. And it came back, which required legislation at the time at the state level. It did a sales tax vote in 1998, passed by about 75%, 77% yes, with a 10-year sunset. And literally within less than a decade, every road in the town of Truckee was rebuilt. And we had to re-up that measure in 2008, and it passed by an 85% yes vote. So the key, I think which really resonated in town hall, the keys there were listen, act based upon what you hear, do what you say you're going to do, and the community will support. And so that resonated here in town hall. Some examples of planning in action. This is the picture on the left is a kind of a typical strip mall that's still there today. I would say it's an example of what county planning produced. Now the sign's not there anymore, thank God, but the rest of it is. And the town wanted to see something different, and so Gateway East on the right, that project was really on the drawing board during the development of the general plan. And the development team said, what is it you really want to see? And the town, these principles in the general plan were being put together. Vertical mixed use, the buildings up close to the street, parking behind, pedestrian access. And so they used those principles, designed this project. It got easily approved at the time because it did that. And it's a 26-year-old project, and I think as you look at it today, it stood the test of time. It works for our community. This is Brickletown, Donner Pass Road. The two pictures on the right are Brickletown, Donner Pass Road. There was this goal of preserving our character and enhancing our downtown, and there were some planning principles put in place to try to help help drive economically the upgrade of that area, and they worked. And you can see one result on the left. If you think about West River Street and what the heck is going on with those buildings basically falling down, at some point this will happen there. And I'm not sure when that's going to be, but when economics allow. Another example I would give is Pioneer Commerce Center. This literally was a junkyard. It had old abandoned equipment all over it. There was a lot of outdoor storage lease tenants there, but it was a horrific scene by most anybody's judgment. Pioneer Commerce Center has become a hub of commercial industrial activity, and I think a success in the community. Sidewalks and trails, again, alternative transportation, one of those goals. When I came to Truckee, 150 miles of roadway, right? 150 miles of roadway, maybe half a mile of sidewalk. Commercial row, some remnants like along the Truckee Donner PUD building, or some isolated pieces of sidewalk for buildings that were built more contemporarily. But that was it. There was no trails. There was no connected sidewalks. Certainly no winter access. And deliberate planning with significant community involvement has led to this amazingly successful network of trails. And just celebrate those for a second. This is the Legacy Trail coming from Glenshire. And also, in addition to trail, sidewalks, public investment downtown in partnership with private investment. And again, focusing your capital dollars where you defined your planning priorities. I think it's really significant. More sidewalks. So everything wasn't a bed of roses. For instance, bike lane. I forgot about bike lanes. Bike lanes too. Donner Pass Road, Donner Lake didn't used to have a bike lane. But everything wasn't a bed of roses. Back in the day, parking downtown was a combination of 2-hour parking, sometimes enforced on the roadways, and a series of primarily dirt lots, some paved, primarily on Union Pacific leased land that were leased by mostly individual downtown merchants. And as the economy changed and UP took over the railroad, they had this notion that this land is worth a lot more than you're paying for it. And we're going to dramatically increase your lease rates. That brought downtown merchants to the town asking us, can you do something to help? And our answer was, yeah. But we're not in the business of providing parking for business. We don't do that anywhere else, so we need your help. And we identified two options. One was business paid parking through some kind of a business assessment, and the other was user paid parking, which is what we have today. 3 years of process, a lot of discussion, a lot of stakeholder process with the downtown merchants, and about 3 months after I became town manager, the switch was flipped on paid parking. And I would argue with anybody that is the most controversial thing the town of Truckee has ever done. And to the credit of public process and in reliance on public process, this council stood firm and said, no, we did this We implemented paid parking in a stepwise and a collaborative process, and we're going to see it through. Now they did say in 5 years we'll take another look, and we did in earnest, and we made some tweaks and we made some refinements, but it was unbelievable. People would write me or the mayor a 5-page letter over a $31 parking ticket. I've taken back everything I purchased. I'm going to tell all my friends never to come here again, and I'm never coming here again. Over a $31 parking ticket. It was unbelievable. And our partners kind of disappeared. The downtown merchants, oh yeah, doesn't that paid parking suck? But the 5-year review really, there was some free parking that came out of that. There was some more expensive parking that came out of that, and that really seemed to work. One of the most interesting things that I heard was during the run-up of paid parking the first few years, it coincided with the Great Recession. And you might not know this today, but paid parking was solely responsible for the Great Recession, at least in downtown Truckee. So it didn't hurt that as we made the tweaks that the economy came roaring back, and so some of our paid parking, well, I would say, I mean, I don't know, Jen could tell you, but I don't think they get 5-page letters about $31 parking tickets anymore. Yeah. So, not all a bed of roses, but public process creates political stability. So some other things happened. We literally had to create the town. The only thing we owned at incorporation was 150 miles of roads, and that was a $40 million liability. So that's what we started with. So thank God to the folks at the PUD. They helped us out with some office space. We purchased this building, I think, in 1999. We created a police department in 2000. And then we started, by the way, that picture on the left, you may not know that. This building is gone now, but that was the county courtyard serving Truckee, and that was directly adjacent to the Truckee River in downtown. We didn't use that. We cobbled together some other stuff, but and then we built the courtyard in 2011. And one of the cool things about the courtyard was that the Forest Service owned that property. We bought part of it, and through a unique process, they were able to use the proceeds didn't go back to Washington, D.C. The proceeds of selling the property went to build their headquarters. And they used to be in a rented, pretty dumpy office space, and now they are solidly there with their own headquarters and fire department. So, yeah, that happened. You got to buy a fleet too. We did inherit some equipment from Nevada County. Most of it had either baling wire or duct tape, or duct tape over baling wire, holding it together. This stuff is expensive, and so we had to build that fleet too. And you can see the benefits of that in driving around Truckee right now. Sandbarn, that building on the left there, that was the county sandbarn that served 150 miles of road in Truckee, and your current sandbarn today. So these things are expensive. And finally, the animal shelter. So when I came here, there was no animal shelter. We rented a space in a kennel that used to be at the corner of Alder Creek Road and Highway 89. And then we built this one on the left to kind of tide us over. And then really developed what, in my opinion, what was an amazing partnership with the Humane Society of Truckee Tahoe, where we split the cost of building an animal shelter and operating it, and that's what we have today. Placer County came in later, and they're partners there too. It's worth noting that almost all of this was built with cash, no borrowing. There was some borrowing for the courtyard, but not a great deal. So the fiscal prudency of the council, particularly in the run-up of the great boom before the Great Recession, 2000 to 2008, they used those proceeds to get these core facilities in place. And they left options for future councils without saddling them with significant debt. And I think that's an underappreciated effort that was made and very significant to the town's success. So it's probably obvious that I'm extremely proud of the town. Many things have gone right during our first 30 years. Economic cycles, political, you name it. I thought you might be interested, though, in some of my disappointments, and I'll just name three. The first would be the lack of progress turning the downtown to embrace the Truckee River. Now we're on the cusp. We've got the Truckee Springs acquisition with the land trust of property on the south side of the river, and we've got the town park and pedestrian bridge project connecting to the north side of the river, and that's going to be significant, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. The second disappointment would be the locals' housing crisis. Now, I'm proud of the things that we did in the town of Truckee in terms of providing locals housing, but in retrospect, not nearly enough, particularly post-pandemic, post-economic boom economies. So much to do there. And then the third thing I would point out is the progression of build-out at the rail yard so far. It is not what was envisioned. The rail yard was supposed to grow from the downtown to the east, not a giant building with a big, it's like somebody knocked the teeth out of the rail yard. So, three disappointments. In closing, I want to make it clear that the early years of the town and the community have developed a recipe for governance, and it was working. The outward signs were community support for the town on important issues and a lack of political swing. We didn't see communities, particularly resort communities, can have these huge political swings, growth, no growth, however you want to say it, but big political changes from election to election. We didn't have that, and that allowed us to get a lot of this work done. But the recipe there involved real community engagement, decisions based upon public input and the best available information, clear priorities based upon community planning and community process. And people know what they are, and we invest our money based upon those. And then a willingness to engage collaborative partners to create value-added solutions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend and former mayor, council member, board of supervisor member, Ted Owens.
Well, thank you, Tony. So there wasn't much going on, actually, here in Truckee. I do have a few comments, Tony. There was an upside to paid parking. It provided a great deal of fodder for the Truckee Follies for a number of years. And I don't believe Supervisor Bullock is here because I think they're meeting today. So I'll jump on the bandwagon of county bashing. I've often wondered what Truckee would be like if incorporation hadn't been successful in 1993. Often I'd be approached by somebody who said we never should have incorporated. I have a different perspective on that. You know, if all the work reflected on by Kathleen and Tony had never taken place, and the county was still in control, particularly of land use, you know, what would Truckee look like? And I think we all know what Roseville looks like and Auburn looks like. And my belief is Truckee would look fairly similarly. Probably about 30% more growth and development, probably far greater use of stucco, and lack of quality development. Would we have the second home market that we have? And I'm going to, that's maybe, you know, we don't like that sometimes and sometimes we do. But when you stop to think that as the town evolved and second home market became robust, they pay taxes. Would we have the schools we have? Would we have good health care? Would we have as robust a rec and park district as we have? These are all good questions, but nothing would look really the same as we know it today. And although we can speculate, I would assert that Truckee would look very, very vastly different. But to understand, as Tony was pointing out, things that counties do versus things a town can do, structurally there's a very different dynamic that exists when you compare the town and how it does things to how county governs. It's not always obvious to the observer, but counties have 5 districts, and you have a supervisor that represents each district. And a priority in one district may not be a priority in another. In fact, may be opposite. And that's a very big distinction, because although the staff at the county level serves each supervisor, they tend not to serve things up and work in a way that the town government has, because you don't want to jeopardize your job by angering one supervisor to please another. So counties sit back. Conversely, if you look at the town planning commission, town council, and the town staff all share the same constituency, and that's a major difference. To some extent, all are rowing in the same or similar direction. Without incorporation, all land use decisions would have, as it had been for 142 years prior, been a 4-to-1 proposition. 4 supervisors down below, 4 planning commissioners down below, and only 1 coming from here. To Kathleen's point, here you had an East County Planning Commission that made a decision that was in the best interest of this community, with input from this community, completely overturned by the Board of Supervisors. It's a good thing, because we're here now. When I began my journey with the town as a planning commissioner, the town was 5 or 6 years old, pretty young. And fortunately, there was a well-built foundation, highly skilled staff, guiding documents such as the General Plan Development Code, Downtown Specific Plan, and there was a dynamic that was shared by the council and the staff, I think, in that particular era that was very unique in my observation, as well as the participating public. And the only priority, as you heard earlier, is what is best for the town, period. Even if there was disagreement on how to get there, that was always the priority. And later I was on the council, and so how did it all hold together with a new council? The founding members had termed off, and so we were in an embryonic stage, and there are several reasons why I believe it was successful. Above all else, it was the vision, it was the drive, it was the boldness of those very first councils. They really established a culture. They established a culture with a very strong adherence to principles. And that evolved into what is referred to today as the Truckee way, although it was not written down at that time, it was an ethos. And most importantly, with broad and dedicated participation of the public. And I really want to emphasize this. I know Tony has several times today. It was common in those days to see at least a dozen or a dozen and a half people at every meeting. Now, when there were divisive issues, the whole room would be packed, and it would be a lot warmer than it is right now. And especially if you're up here, it's extremely warm. But there was a great deal of public participation. And I'm going to say this, in the when we were talking and planning, I caught myself saying, at the turn of the last century, and wow, that makes me feel much older than I think I am. But in the early 2000s, the council faced a lot of development and growth pressures. So the town had incorporated at a very good time, if you look at the economic conditions that drove growth that followed. There were a lot of things facing that council at that time. There was launching the Truckee Police Department. And I've got a funny story, because the town had engaged, prior to me being on the council, the community. What do you want to see if we transition away from the county sheriff's department and we form our own police department? And one of the primary things in that polling data was, we want to see the police out of their cars, out in the community. And so we formed the police department. I will never forget that night, first watch. And a true story, there was a call, and the Truckee police were there in 2 minutes, and the caller said, I'm used to 20 minutes. So we were already off to a good start, but it was a little rocky because we started getting comments and complaints from downtown. Why are the police walking the sidewalks? Why are they coming into the stores? Why are they coming into the bar? Is this a Gestapo? It's what you wanted, you know. So we got off to a little bit of a rough, rocky start, but smoothed out and really exercised community-based policing. Believe it or not, Pioneer Commerce Center was not an easy lift from a decision-making standpoint. There were trees that needed to be removed, a lot of things that needed to be cleaned up. And it turned out that part of what we were thinking at that time was that this would help move some of those historic commercial uses off of the Truckee River and move up there. Well, it didn't really happen that way, but it turned out to be a very robust commercial center with multiple kinds of uses of the buildings that are there. Then we had Coyote Moon. We know that as a golf course, but it had one owner that logged it and then disappeared, and another owner that came in, and Coyote Moon became a golf course. Old Greenwood subdivision with a golf course. Pine Forest subdivision, no golf course. But there was Gray's Crossing subdivision with a golf course. And keep in mind, there were other golf courses that came along, you know, in that era outside of the town limits in Lahontan and Martis Camp and Schaefer's Mill. Needless to say, that theme developed into kind of the golf course wars. Are golf courses open space? Or are they not open space? Do they have impacts on the animals? If you've ever played Coyote Moon, that's where you see the most wildlife that you will see in Truckee. Anyway, there were other things that were benefits that came along with some of these projects. And one of them was on Gray's Crossing, for example. There were trails, of course, and many other things. But so came the land that the Rec and Park District's community center sits on today. They were not going to use that, and we were able to work with the developer to acquire it. In addition to that was the 9 acres that today is Frischman Hollow, affordable housing. And for those of us that remember Ruth Frischman, that was one of her causes, was affordable housing. And that's why it is named that. But I want to share with you a story about how the council functioned. When I arrived on the council, and I was learning, I had 4 mentors with me, and I wasn't alone. It's how it worked back then. And later, there was a new council member who was elected, Beth Ingalls, who I ran against. I'm still irritated that she was the high vote getter and beat me by 34 votes, but I'm able to reconcile that now. Beth and I came from 2 opposite points of view on the world and joined the council, and it was seamless. And she's a lovely person, and we worked very well together. But on a particular vote on Gray's Crossing, she had been elected to be the slayer of golf courses, and that was a platform that she ran on. And we had a town attorney named Dennis Crabb, who is a very wonderful person to work with, and when you're new on the council, you sit down with the town attorney, and he kind of reviews the laws that govern you, and you kind of realize the light bulb goes on over your head going, oh, I made a lot of promises about things I can't do. How am I going to maneuver this? Beth, every fiber in her body wanted to vote no on that project. But the general plan was pretty clear on uses, and golf was a targeted use. And I think she sat right here. And she voted yes, and her eyes were wet. And we took a break. And what that taught me was that she knew what her job was in the service of the whole community. She lost friends over it, but it was a gutsy vote. And that was all based on that foundational principles and culture that had been developed very, very early. I will tell you, it's what made Truckee very different than what I observed with Grass Valley and Nevada City, being 150 years old. Your grandfather served on the council, mine. It was, all that kind of baggage existed down there. We also were wrestling with what should the future of the rail yard be. Tony touched on that. We had a little problem, which was, it served the railroad for 135 years. So, is it a Superfund site? I mean, do we know? How do we attract a developer to maybe remotely be interested? And through award of a grant, I think that Councilmember Sussman worked heavily on at the time, we were able to answer those questions and be able to attract a developer to work with. Again, Tony mentioned the Corp Yard site. I won't go into that, but initiating the first general plan update, it was like 8 years old. But what we learned was some of the assumptions we made starting from scratch were flawed, and we needed to update that general plan. It served us well since, and I know the town is updating it yet again. It makes me feel old once again. And of course, affordable housing was an issue at that time, as it is today. The Great Recession kind of solved that for a little while, but as all things, pendulums swing, and I think that we're there again. We also had to wrestle with the acquisition of equipment. Tony had a slide there showing you the old equipment. Doesn't look anything like the snow blowers we have now. I mean, now snow blowers have names even. I mean, it's an amazing swing and quite different. But that was very difficult to balance when you've got to buy snow blowers and plows and vehicles and patrol cars and what have you. And again, I will go back to the benefit of having the aid and assistance of second homeowners who pay taxes here, just like we all do that live here full time, because they really have enabled this town to be more robust than many that are not in a resort community. The council I joined was very focused on customer service in every single department. Always with the mantra, which I'll say it, we will not be like the county. Okay, and so customer service was very important. Full transparency, really listening to and engaging the public and encouraging public participation. Consensus building. This is where I learned that theory and how beneficial it really truly is for a long-lasting working relationship in government. The council worked like a team, not as individuals with agendas. And each council member also brought to the table, as council members do today, an area of expertise. We had a corporate council member that was very good at budget. I always remember Don McCormick. I would study the budget. I was going to find something, and I was convinced this budget is clear, this budget is clean, and then it would get to Don. And how do you find these needles in the haystack, Don? But that was his expertise. That was where he was a pro. I found the council to be warm, inclusive, brave, energetic, and really loved and thrived on debate, which was a lot of fun sometimes. I'll never forget, for those of you that know Josh Sussman, I decided I'd lead on something I was passionate about. And when I was done talking, I sat here and I kind of looked over at Josh, and he looked at me like, and I was, oh no, it's going to happen. And it did happen, but we had a beer afterwards. So it was not a big deal. We understood our role and our job. As with everything, times change and people change. Today's council, as you're about to hear in a moment from our mayor, face different challenges and different pressures. And thankfully, they're among the few who are willing to serve their community. And observations that concern me moving forward is hopefully we will see interest in running for town council increase and elevate. And that's not a knock on those that are serving at all. But it's a observation, and it's better for a community. Not that we have 26 or 27 candidates run like a first election, but it was not uncommon to see 5, 6, or as many as 9 candidates run in a council race. And hopefully we trend out of the lingering impacts of the pandemic, which I think today's a great sign, so I'm very happy. We may see more public participation, at council meetings. As Pat Davison, who is a now retired executive director from the Contractors Association, used to say, she didn't just say it, she'd bring a sign with her that said, "The world is run by those who show up." And it's still true. social media posts do not constitute showing up. And although social media places pressures on today's council leaders that neither I nor my colleagues had to contend with, and it is different, it does not replace, in my view, the interaction of human beings face to face with the public and the council in a setting that's designed for that purpose. Nothing. So I believe that the results of that relationship, when engaged, is superior and beneficial to us all. And those are my thoughts. And with that, I would like to turn it over to our Truckee Mayor, Mayor Romack. It's yours.
Thank you all for being here. I'm Lindsay Romack, current mayor of Truckee, and thanks to my fellow panelists today, discussioneers. It's been an incredible experience. We've planned this together, and I've got to spend a few hours with these three, and they have a lot of amazing stories, and they just shared a few snippets today. So thank you to you all. And you know, this brings us now to a really exciting point. And I think maybe I missed a slide. Well, I was going to make a joke about a really exciting point because I'm the last presentation separating you from breakfast. So I know you're all very excited. But it really is an exciting time because where we are in Truckee and where we are for the future of Truckee. And, you know, we're celebrating today the past 30 years, but I did want to take a moment to maybe look back even a little bit deeper for a brief moment to acknowledge some of the folks that were here even before any of us in this room. So, you know, a brief nod to the indigenous people, the Washoe tribe who inhabited the land, and their love and stewardship of this place allow us to continue to enjoy our trees, our rivers, our mountains. So thanks to them. Also wanted to acknowledge our immigrant workers in the 1800s who helped build this town, as well as build the railroad and connect us to California and the rest of the country and help our economy become what it is today. Plus, countless other remarkable community members, local business owners whose creative visions and perseverance throughout many challenges in the past hundreds of years helped make Truckee what it is today. So that brings us to today. And thanks to our foreparents, as I like to call our foremothers and forefathers, for getting us to where we are. And I'm really excited because the current council, which you see on this slide, and you'll see it shows I only own one nice shirt. I guess I got to work on that.
With that council salary? Come on.
With that council, exactly. I could have two. But no, what the folks that you've heard from and some of you in the room have done have put us in an incredible place fiscally, philosophically, and infrastructurally, if that's a word. Fiscally, as Tony highlighted, the decisions that were made by past council members to utilize cash on hand and also, go to the voters and understand, are they supportive of improving their roads? Yes. All right, Measure V passed. Are they supportive of trails? There is another measure. So being fiscally prudent has put us, the current council, in an incredible place because we are able to be a little bit more flexible. We're not tied down by paying off debt from past decisions. So I really thank the previous councils and staff for that. And then philosophically, you heard from all three of them about the Truckee way and how important it is that we listen to our community and the decisions we make are for what's best for this community, and we do it respectfully and transparently. And then infrastructure. Past councils and staff invested in infrastructure and roads, not just thinking about what's needed today, but thinking about what will Truckee need in the future. So again, that has put us in an incredible position. So as Kathleen highlighted, the main priorities back when the town was incorporated was land use planning, roads, and snow removal. And those really continue to be the key services today and the core services that we still do. So it's not a 2023 PowerPoint if you don't have snow pictures. I think that's a new rule. So I did want to highlight, again, it was thanks to those who came before me that realized the importance of having decision makers who understood what this community and climate was like, so they could invest in the equipment that was needed, so that the right staff would be available to serve our community. And we know it hasn't been perfect the past few weeks, but our public works and our public safety staff have done an incredible job. And if we didn't have these resources, it would have looked much different, and we might have all been stuck in our houses much longer. And then up next, the general plan. You've heard about the first general plan and the general plan update. And, it's always been about land use planning and building off of the important things that were first identified in the first general plan. And, Tony highlighted a few of downtown is the heart, protecting the environment, alternative transportation, community character. You even highlighted vertical mixed use and development close to the road. These are still visions that are in the draft general plan today. So it's exciting that this is a plan that will be guiding development and our community for years to come. And as Ted mentioned, shameless plug, there is a planning commission meeting tonight at 5:00 tonight and tomorrow night. So again, I would encourage you to show up and be a part of that discussion. And then it is scheduled to come before the council on April 11th. Up next, this is really exciting. This is draft. So this has not been approved by council yet, but this goes into our current council priorities. And so this will be coming to our council next week. We will affirm the priorities for the next 2 years. But I wanted to highlight again that these tie back into a lot of what you've heard and the foundations that have been part of this community from the beginning. Workforce housing, that is infrastructure. That is ensuring that we have the investments in our community to support our community. Emergency preparedness, that ties into snow removal, as well as Kathleen highlighted wildfire and being ready for that, continuing to invest in those resources. Environmental sustainability, protecting and preserving our environment, and also looking at how our infrastructure needs to adapt to the changing climate. What ways can we better build our infrastructure to meet the challenges of the future? And then enhancing communication and public outreach. Again, that goes back to the Truckee way, continually finding ways where we can connect with community members and hear their thoughts and their goals and their visions. And then, of course, key infrastructure and community connectivity. That's infrastructure. That one's pretty obvious. Again, that continues to be a really important part of what we do in Truckee. So as we look ahead, I like to think about how past councils and past staff dealt with different issues. And, we heard Kathleen mention the Jabroom Street paving. They just moved forward on that. They didn't spend time doing studies, as you said. It was important, so they moved forward. And you just got to jump in and try some things sometimes. So that's something I'm proud current council TART Connect. This is a new microtransit program. We're now in our second seasonal pilot. We've seen more than 50,000 passenger trips on microtransit in these 2 seasons. Compare that to 2019 numbers, where I believe it was around 25,000 total for an entire year. So we're seeing more people take alternative transportation, something that's been identified as a goal for years, and it's just really exciting. We're looking forward to, looking to expand that throughout the town starting in April, and then, looking for ways to fund it moving forward if it continues to be a successful program. Also want to highlight some housing programs. These are new programs we've tried at the town that have, tried to help out with that housing issue that we've heard everyone identify, like the lease to locals, incentivizing homeowners to rent to members of our workforce rather than short-term rent their properties, and our THAP program, the Truckee Home Access Program, which helps current members of our workforce purchase homes in our community so they can stay here. But even better, it means that house is going to be deed restricted pretty much for perpetuity for our local workforce. So we will continue to have options for members of our workforce. And as we look ahead, what else? What are some of the other innovative programs? We have an incredible staff that comes up with fabulous ideas. We have a wonderful community that shares those with us too. So I'm really excited to continue to see what new and innovative things might come. But we also have to continue to learn from things that we do and when they don't work out well, like a cyber attack that happened to the town last year. That was something we were not prepared for, but now it's so exciting. We have an incredible IT staff at the town, and we have to do multi-authentication to get into our various systems, but that means we are better adapted for the 21st century and better able to address challenges as they come towards us. Another big one that nobody saw that we had to deal with was, of course, COVID. I was looking back through pictures, with COVID. My very first council meeting, it was a Brady Bunch. We were all at our homes. We were all Zooming in because that's what we had to do during COVID. So this really forced staff and our community to look at things differently and how we interacted and what services were provided. But again, it allowed us to learn and to make decisions that can be better for the future of our community. So what's next in unforeseen challenges? We don't know. Tony had to deal with a railroad merger, and then they built an undercrossing. So something new is going to come our way, but again, be ready to adapt and evolve with those changes. And then the last piece I just wanted to highlight as we think towards what's next, and again, everyone up here highlighted it, and that is public participation. We have seen an evolution in community engagement. COVID, again, that has changed things, but it allowed us to realize that we can do virtual meetings. We can offer other opportunities online to reach people who may not have otherwise interacted on issues. Ted also touched on social media. That has been a big evolution, something I don't think anybody thought about 30 years ago. And there are positives and negatives to that. Positives in that we can communicate with the public and hear from the public in a more immediate way. We can get out information and send out alerts when there are issues happening in our town. But there are negatives too, in that every council member can't read every Facebook post or see every Instagram post. And so when you make comments there, it's not always the most impactful. So I'm kind of going to jump on Ted's bandwagon because I did want to end with encouraging everyone to continue to participate and participate in the most impactful way. Come to Good Morning Truckees and council meetings and planning commission and share your ideas and share your thoughts. And if you can't come, you can email public comments in advance. So that way you ensure that we can all hear what you're thinking and what your beliefs are. Because again, we're the five of us that are up here currently council members. We are here to serve you. And I know that is going to be the same for the next 30 years. So I will close it out by saying thank you all to everyone again for coming today. Thank you to my fellow presenters. It's been an incredible experience. And since it's a celebration, I would invite everyone to raise their glass because I think we need to do a cheers to the past 30 years of the incredibleness that is Truckee and the 30 years and more to come. Cheers.
You want me to close it? I think we're at the 8:30. Very good job, right on time. We're at the 8:30 time frame. I know a lot of you have to leave, but I would suggest that we will stick around a little bit for those of you that might want to ask some questions. And thank you all very much for attending. It was a great experience.
And we have the
raffle.
raffle.
Wait a minute, that's right. You have raffle. Don't go.
Prizes.
You're going to be late.
We have breakfast too, I think.
Wait a minute.
And then breakfast afterwards.
Where's my raffle ticket?
Got lots of raffle prizes.
And breakfast is buffet style, and it's out in the hallway. You can get a plate and bring it back in here.
That's right. I forgot about that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm Jessica Penman. I am the president and CEO of the Truckee Chamber of Commerce. We really appreciate you making the effort to be here early this morning. Our next Good Morning Truckee is Tuesday, April 18th, and we'll be talking about emergency preparedness. So look out for that. The information for that will go out next week. But first, raffle prizes and then breakfast. So our first raffle prize is a Truckee history book. We have a Truckee theme today since that's what we're celebrating. Do you have? Oh, we need the raffle tickets first, so just a second. It seems like cheating. All right. Okay, the first one must be present to win. 4584851. Nope. All right. 4584822. Oh, this is an embarrassing part when you continue to read numbers. All right, 4584761. Ted, what was your number? All right. Thank you. Okay. The next one is a Town of Truckee pen set in a very nice box. Ooh. 4584812. Yeah. All right, and our next is a car scraper and de-icer spray in celebration of this winter. We thought we would give you some things to help get here early in the morning. So 4584701. Nice. Our next is a $15 gift certificate donated by Visit Truckee Tahoe for the sustainable gift card. So enjoy shopping local. The gift card supports nearly 60 Truckee business locations. In addition, Visit Truckee Tahoe matches 25% of fund stewardship projects. It's a digital gift card, so you can just use it at any of the stores that participate, and it expires on September 21st, 2023. And Siobhan was here. I don't know if she's still here to say thank you to. Thank you for the donation. 4584697. Okay. 4584755. Yay. All right, we got 3 more. The next one's a travel mug and a return ticket to Good Morning Truckee. All right, 4584745. No. All right. Oh. We have a winner? Oh, great. All right, the next one is a candle and a return ticket to Good Morning Truckee.
Lighting their way back.
Yeah. 4584768. Yay. Perfect. All right, and our last prize is a Truckee Spring gift basket because it is officially spring. Even though it's going to snow some more. 4584855. Sorry, Karen. All right. Thank you all so much. Breakfast is served in the hallway, and then feel free to come back in here and chat with our panelists and anybody else you want to chat with. Thank you so much.